I was working on my sermon this week, and I have to admit, I'm preaching on a whole different text. And I was trying to work on my sermon, and there was a comment that was given to me on the phone last week from a friend, and it's just kept nudging in my head. We were talking on the phone, and he said, I think you should have, sermon challenges. I'm like, sermon challenges? What do you mean? He says, I think you need to do a sermon about CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the prodigal son. I'm just going to throw two things out there, and you need to do a sermon on it. And I was like, okay, we'll see if we can make this happen. So I'm going to do a sermon on Chip and the prodigal son today, because someone challenged me to it. I want to see where it goes. So first, the prodigal son. You all know the story of the prodigal son, right? This is the guy who looked at his father and said, "Dad, you're dead to me. Give me my inheritance now." And the father said, "You're crazy." No. The father said, "Okay," and gave him his inheritance. And the prodigal son went off and did what people do with money and spent it all. And ended up working in a pigsty. And came to his senses and said, if I go back to my dad and say, "I'm not worthy to be your son, please make me your slave," he'll give me some food and some money, and I'll have a better life than I have right here. So that's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to try to convince my dad to take me back, at least as a slave for him, because I'll do better there. And he goes home, and he says, "Dad," and Dad cuts him off immediately and says, he's back! Wonderful news! Servants, come here. First of all, take him, give him a bath. He smells like a pig. And as soon as you do that, put some great clothes on him, give him the nice ring, give him some good shoes, let's have a party, let's get all the food ready, and we're going to have a big feast." And they go and party, and the other son, the older son in this story, comes back, and he sees the partying going on, and before he gets to the house, and he asks someone, "So what's going on inside?" And they say, "Well, your brother's back. It's wonderful news, And what? And the dad comes out and says, "Come on in, we're partying." And he says, "Now look here. I've worked my butt off for how many years? And this son of yours shows up and you throw him a party?" And Dad says, "This brother of yours was dead, but now he's alive, and we have to celebrate." So, the prodigal son and Chip, the Children's Health Insurance Program. If you haven't been watching the news, the Children's Health Insurance Program is currently one of the things that is potentially not going to appear on this next year's budget. Funding was cut for it back in September, I believe, and its funds, the total funds that were set aside for it will run out in March if it's not refunded at this current juncture, which is what Congress is discussing this week and needs to pass something by Friday. So the fate of CHIP is on the line this week, right now. So CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program, insures about 3.5 million children across this country who otherwise wouldn't have health insurance. Sounds like a no-brainer in your head, kind of. Helping out those who can't help themselves because they're newborns. We do that for our own kids, don't we? On the other hand, these people are, in a way, the prodigal son. They are getting their inheritance now, the inheritance of the American dream of having a good life where you are taken care of and are able to have amenities that other people in the world wouldn't have. They are getting these amenities that they have not worked for. And same with those who are on Medicaid. They are getting these amenities that they have not worked for. They are benefiting from the American dream that people like you and me have put a lot of effort into making a reality, and people before us have done as well. So there's an article in the Texas Observer that I came across, a friend posted last week. And the article, headline, so you make sure I'm reading this, the headline, "As a doctor, I'm sick of all the healthcare freeloaders." Subtitle, "I work in a clinic where the vast majority of my patients are on government-funded healthcare, and I've never worked a day in their lives," by Rachel Pearson, who is an MD in Texas. First paragraph of this article. "I used to believe that everyone deserved health care. Now I work in a clinic where the vast majority of my patients are on government-funded health care, and I have learned that the stereotypes of these people is true. Most of my patients have never worked a day in my life. My patients have punched me, bitten me, screamed at me, even urinated on me. And do my patients thank me for what I do? No." The story of the prodigal son and his brother. The one who sits there and goes, "You know what? I personally have seen the inside of some of these clinics because I ended up in one in Southside Dallas once, which is the poor community in Dallas. And you don't know whether or not you should feel like these are people we need to care for, or I'm completely disgusted by the reality of what's going on here and slightly scared for my life. You don't know which to feel when you're in those clinics. In the waiting room, it's dangerous sometimes. You don't know what's all around you. There are people who look clearly like they just OD'd and or may have a needle out with them right there. You can feel scared. You don't know if there's going to be a gang fight that will fall down in the middle of the clinic, because it's possible and it happens. And that's what the issue with the prodigal son is, isn't it? The issue isn't that we shouldn't care for people who are in need. The issue is there are prodigal sons out there who waste the inheritance they get and ruin it for the rest of the people who actually need it. That ends up being, when we talk politics and we talk whether or not we're going to fund Medicaid or we're going to fund CHIP, the question isn't how many people in the world need it. It's how many people in the world have ruined it. How many people in the world have taken advantage of something good that we've tried to do, and as a result made it look like a horrible thing and ruined it for everyone else? So maybe you're thinking now, okay, so I get that there's politics around this, but for me, I don't see what the problem is. We know that we're supposed to care for those in need, and this seems like an unequivocally good program, CHIP. So let me put it in a different light, because we are all, on some level, the prodigal son's brother. So my dad, and I think I've mentioned this story before. My dad, there's this guy near where we live whom my dad does not like with a passion. And the reason he doesn't like him isn't because he's a bad person necessarily. The reason he doesn't like him is because this guy's gone bankrupt 6 times and now has a $3 million property in a town where he's the only millionaire. And built a factory that daily puts out 2 48-row planters for John Deere, and made so much money off that factory that he bought the bar in town and rebuilt it so that his workers had a place to go eat, and then sold the factory back to John Deere and built another factory across the street to build more farm equipment. Like, he's doing well for himself, and my dad's sitting here going, that's not right. That's not right. He should be in debt for the rest of his life, paying back every dime the government bailed him out of those 6 times he went bankrupt. I'm getting nods here. Okay? So you know the feeling. You know the feeling. This year, we are focusing on the concept of evangelism, of going out and sharing the good news. And this is one of the realities that I want to forewarn you of. We are going to be the brothers in this story of the prodigal son. We are the ones who are already in. We are the ones who have God's inheritance promised to us. Yes? We are the ones who have earned all this and have been at it in the church, working for the goodness of the kingdom of God, some of us since before we were born. And the call for evangelism is to reach out to all those people who are not part of this kingdom and invite them in. And some of those people we're going to reach out to, and it's going to feel great reaching out to them. And sometimes we're going to encounter someone who's going to be like the prodigal son, the person who ruins it for everyone else. And when that happens, we're going to sit there and go, Everyone else, I can find a good reason to invite them in. But that person, that one don't deserve it. That one's got no place here. There is no reason we should celebrate that person and what they've done in their life because they don't deserve the good that they got right now. It's going to happen. We're going to get those nod your head moments where we're going to run into people who we're not sure we should celebrate, that we're not sure we should welcome. The challenge of the story is to stop being sticks in the mud. God says, look, you have everything I've ever given out. I have given you guys benefits beyond measure. You are part of the promise that I have. But this person over here, this person was dead, and now they're alive. They were lost, but now they are found. Should we not celebrate? I imagine the story that's going to play out in your head is going to be something to the effect of, you know, we've been praying for how long that so-and-so gets healed from cancer, right? How many people have been on our prayer list for years? And we went and we reached out to this one person. It just happened randomly. And within that reaching out and meeting their story, within a week, someone that's been on their mind got healed for cancer. How is that right? How is that right, God? That should happen to that person when it didn't happen to us all this time. That's the story you're going to encounter. When we start touching lives, more lives than we've normally touched this year, and we start encountering those people and finding out their stories, I'm not going to say it's necessarily cancer, but you're going to find that reason that says, how come they got what I haven't been able to succeed in getting all these years of prayer? Whether it was just more time off, or it was more money, or it was actually winning the lottery. Whose prayer is that? Come on, that's... How come they got to win it this time? And we're going to be asked to say, even for that person who makes doing good taste bad in your mouth, I want you to celebrate that one too, and the good they got. Even when the good they received tastes bad in your mouth, I'm asking you to come into the celebration, because they were the ones who were dead and now have a chance at life, and they need you in order to understand what that life means in its fullness. The story I read, the newspaper article, the first time I read it, everything I read to you guys is what I read, and I kind of just turned the story off after that. It turns out the story was very facetious. As a pediatrician, I provide these scowling little freeloaders with life-saving therapies like vaccines and antibiotics, and they are often literally carried to and from my clinic in the arms of a real taxpayer. And I wrote to my congressman, or I forget if it was my senator or my congressman, honestly, and I was trying to look for the article during the readings really quick, and I couldn't find it. But he responded back to me and said that he, along with 16 other Republicans, wrote and signed a letter to Congress and to the president saying, we need to fund this program. For how many ever people have made it taste bad in our mouth